Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to week 6 of the Leadership Alliance Professional Development Workshop Series. My name is Dr. Taiese Bingham-Hickman. I'm the Executive Director of the Leadership Alliance, and I will be the moderator for today's event. This event is a component of the Leadership Alliance Virtual Professional Development Series. The Leadership Alliance Executive Office and its partners created this initiative to ensure continuity of skill building, networking, and exposure to graduate programs for undergraduate and graduate students. Paired with our Wednesday evening workshop series, we hope to expose you to a discussion of critical issues, allow you to network with each other and our wonderful doctoral scholars, as well as develop learning approaches and skills for navigating your research careers. Before we begin this evening's conversation, I want to briefly address the Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action in higher education. And so I'm just going to read a brief statement. The Leadership Alliance is deeply disappointed in the Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action. The Leadership Alliance, in compliance with the law, remains steadfast in its support of underrepresented scholars pursuing a path to research. Moreover, the Leadership Alliance maintains its commitment to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion through lawful practices in order to ensure equitable opportunities in the research workforce. Celebrating and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion is central to all that we embody. And we advise students to review their home institution's response by way of a message from their president's office. Most presidents have issued a public statement, and we encourage students to pursue the institutions who have demonstrated a commitment to supporting diverse students. The Leadership Alliance stands by our mission to develop underrepresented students into outstanding leaders and role models in academia, business, and the public sector. So with that, I'd like to introduce our doctoral scholar for this evening, Dr. Vanessa Fleites. Dr. Vanessa Fleites is an assistant director in the Office of Multicultural Affairs, Learner Diversity Programs for the Health Professions at Emory University. In this role, she supports learners in the School of Medicine's health professions programs, specifically medical imaging, anesthesiology assistant, genetic counseling, the Division of Physical Therapy, and physician assistant program. She is also the OMA liaison for the Latino Student Medical Association. Dr. Fleites manages Emory's Health Professions Readiness Education Program, or Health Prep. Health Prep is supported through the National HCUP Academy and is an 8-week program that provides students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds the skills needed to increase their competitiveness for admissions to health-related medical, graduate, and professional schools. Dr. Fleites obtained her associate's degree in psychology from the Miami-Dade Honors College and her bachelor's degree in neuroscience from the University of Miami. She then earned her PhD in neuroscience at the University of Pennsylvania. During her time in graduate school, Dr. Fleites was a fellow in the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Learner Research Office in the Biomedical Graduate Program at UPenn and held leadership positions in several student organizations focused on individuals traditionally underrepresented in STEM. So with that, thank you, Dr. Fleites, for joining us this evening. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to say to support your bio or any other background that you think would be helpful for our students listening today.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Bingham-Hickman, for the invitation, and Dr. Indorf and the Leadership Alliance. It's an honor to talk to the students, even though I can't see them, but I know that they're listening. So yeah, like you mentioned, I am Cuban American from Miami, Florida. I was born and raised there. And then I did my associates at the Honors College at Miami-Dade. And so I was majored in psychology, and during that time I thought that I wanted to go and be a psychiatrist because I knew I liked the brain. I wanted to understand that further, and so I thought that medical school was the only way. And so during my associates, I started to do research through the Bridge to the Baccalaureate program with the University of Miami. And so through that program, I was first introduced to research, and then was able to transition to the University of Miami, and then complete my bachelor's in neuroscience. Again, I knew that I liked the brain. I liked science courses. And so I continued that, still thinking that I wanted to do psychiatry. But then I talked to someone in medical school and realized that I did not like blood and I could not do all of the rotations in medical school. So that was not the career path for me. And so again, talking to individuals, and that will be a theme, and having mentors is really important because I realized that that wasn't the path for me. And so at the same time, through the office at the University of Miami, I was recommended to apply to the Leadership Alliance summer research programs. And so through that, I was accepted and did my summer research program at the University of Pennsylvania, where I did more neuroscience research that summer. And then that kind of opened this new pathway to do my PhD in the biomedical sciences. And I love that experience and the mentors that I had there. And so that led me to pursue my PhD in neuroscience at the University of Pennsylvania. So the same place I did my summer research program. And then doing my PhD there, I was heavily involved in different organizations, like you mentioned. So the SACNAS chapter, the Society for Chicanos, Hispanic, and Native Americans in Science. I was one of the members of the founding board, and did that for a few years. And then I was also involved in the DEI office at Penn. And the director at the time there, Dr. Arnaldo Diaz, knew that I was interested in that career path, moving towards academic administration and mentoring students. And so when a position opened up in his office for a grad fellow, he told me about it. I applied to it. And so that's how I was able to have a part-time paid position in the DI office. And I did that running the summer programs there for 2.5 years while still doing my PhD. So long PhD, 7 years, but then graduated, actually defended my dissertation in September of 2022, and then immediately started this position that I have now at Emory, doing just that full time, being the assistant director in the Office of Multicultural Affairs. I run a summer program, like you mentioned, health prep, and then work with different learner populations. So like you said, more the allied health professions, but still doing a lot of recruitment, retention, and thinking about DEI programming for those students as well.
Great. And congratulations on recently graduating. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So we had a question from one of our students who asked, what pushed you to work with graduate students in DEI over continuing a typical doctoral neuroscience career? And what challenges come with working specifically in the DEI space?
Sure. Yeah. So when I was in my PhD program, I think that everyone kind of has a lot of different sessions on different career paths for PhDs. And so at first I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I didn't see myself being a PI and writing grants and running my own lab. The more I got familiarized with what it entailed, I still loved doing the science, and still do. I still love the science, but didn't see myself doing that, as a career. And so I started going to these panels, kind of figuring out, was I interested in consulting and, kind of starting to eliminate different career paths. And what really stayed at the forefront of all of that is I love doing the work that I was doing at the time with the SACNAS chapter, helping other graduate students, helping undergrads and high school students reach whatever professional aspirations they had, regardless if it was in the research realm in the biomedical sciences or not. That's what I would progress to work with my research. And I saw myself keep doing those things. And then when I started working in the DI office, by that point, I knew I loved mentoring students, and loved doing the work of working with summer pipeline programs. I actually ended up running, first helping the 2020 program being converted from in-person to completely virtual because of the pandemic. And then that experience led me to lead the 2021 summer undergraduate research program over at Penn while still doing my PhD. And then again, I love that experience talking to students and just mentoring them. And so that solidified that that was the path that I wanted to continue on. But really, it also stemmed from seeing people and having a PhD in the biomedical sciences in those spaces. I think also opened that career path. So again, you know, having mentors and having informational meetings with different individuals really did kind of clear what I wanted to do.
Okay, and we have a number of students with us that are from Hispanic, Latina backgrounds, and so one of our questions came from a Latina, and she wants to know, as a Latina that has graduated or navigated graduate school, what are your best tips for other Latinas and especially first gen students to excel in these academic spaces while also staying true to who they are culturally or otherwise?
Yeah, that's a great question. My first advice would be to lean into the support system that you already have. For me, my family and friends were just invaluable to my success, honestly. Whenever anything happened, I would always, you know, FaceTime them. So again, I was living away from home. And so the other thing was building a community at the place that I was. And so that was really important to me. So one of the reasons that I joined the SACNAS chapter was because of that community. We established that for other Latinos and Latinas at Penn. It was great to hear people speak Spanish and hear the word tostones, for example, something that I hadn't heard since I was in Miami. And so just, you know, those little things that help you build community. So that would be my other advice, build community. And then like the person that asked the question, you have to stay true to yourself. And so you can't forget who you are. And so that means doing the things that pour into yourself so that you can pour into others. And so making sure that you are doing, you're staying with your hobbies, right? Physical and mental wellness is also really important. And so taking into account what you need to do for yourself is also really important. And then the last thing would be, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that was one of the biggest struggles when I left Miami was realizing that it's okay to ask for help and that people are more than willing to help you. And so just find who your allies are, who your supporters are, you know, in all of the DEI spaces. Those are people that you can always go to, but even just the peers that you make at your different institutions, lean on those people as well.
Great advice. And we also have a somewhat related question from an international student. So this person writes, as a prospective graduate student coming from an underrepresented minority group in Nigeria, how do I build and maintain a stellar networking profile to navigate my graduate school journey?
Yeah, so I think that this would apply to anyone. Is you're gonna have, or hopefully you're thinking about mentors and what that means to you, and realizing that one person might fit one part of what a mentor could be, but not everything. And so that means that you need to have multiple mentors that can help you along different points of your trajectory. And so one of the ways to, you know, formalized mentoring relationships is to first start off by having informational meetings with people that you're interested in their career path, their research, and just asking them to meet for like a 30-minute conversational meeting, either through Zoom or in person, depending on what the situation is. But that really, and then coming prepared, right, with questions of, you know, why you're asking for that meeting. So what are you interested in? And it's more about learning, right? So genuine interest in learning about the person and their career path. And so that would be my advice out of like first networking. And then those networking kind of interactions could build into mentorship opportunities later, depending on, you know, how you connect and keeping in touch as well. And so the great thing about informational meetings as well is that even though that person might not be, you might be interested in something and they're not the right person, right, that has that information. They might know someone that does. And so I feel like that's also how you start to build your social network as well.
I think that advice would apply for to the person who submitted this next question as well. So this person is categorized as a non-traditional student. That's how they describe themselves. And she already has a master's degree in behavioral economics that she earned almost 6 years ago. And she's in the process of switching her professional path from economics to medical science. And she wants to know whether or not that switch could hurt her chances of being admitted to a PhD program. So is there any advice that you have for non-traditional students who either took gap years or went into the workforce and are now considering a PhD? Any advice that you can give to individuals like that?
Yeah, I think that so anyone thinking about that has taken gap years, or I actually heard this term the other day, growth years. I love that term now. It's much more common now. I think that when I, for example, was an undergrad, and it's much more, it's time for you to, you tried something else and then you realize that maybe that's not what you wanted to do. And that's definitely okay. And so it definitely doesn't hurt your chances to get into other programs, to change your careers. I've seen someone be a high school teacher for many years and then switch and become an anesthesiology assistant and go to school for that. So it's definitely possible to do various things and do a career change. I think that what you need to do, though, if you're thinking of a career change, so for example, in the biomedical sciences, so a PhD doing research in the biomedical sciences is talking to people that are in those fields and seeing what would make you a competitive applicant. And so, for example, to get into PhD programs, doing research in the biomedical sciences, one big thing is the research readiness, right? So have you done research, right, that allows you to understand, right, what a research project entails, and therefore apply it to PhD programs where you're going to be conducting research for the next few years. And so those are the type of things that you should think about when you're thinking about career changes, is what do you need to do to be competitive. Sometimes, for example, if it's a career change for medical school, let's say, then you have to make sure that your prerequisites, right, for that, you have to go back and take them, for example, or have like the clinical research or the clinical patient experience that you need to get in. And so those are just things that then, going back to the informational meetings, making sure that you do that homework if you're thinking about doing those changes and what it is you need to get into those programs. But definitely it's never too late to do it. So.
And can you provide specific examples of either programs or resources offered by OMA or, even outside of that, that have been particularly effective in addressing the unique needs and challenges of learners from diverse backgrounds in health professions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have, in the Office of Multicultural Affairs, or OMA, we have a lot of pipeline programs that we think are very beneficial to students from first generation low income backgrounds. And so we have a few of those. We have Health Prep, which is the one that I manage, which is for undergrads and post-bac students that are interested in the health professions. So particularly medical school or the allied health professions like physician assistant, physical therapy, anesthesiology assistant, genetic counseling. And then, so that program gives Kaplan and MCAT or GRE prep course to the students. We have a partnership with the Rollins School of Public Health where they develop a research proposal. We also have different professional development sessions like how to interview, how to network, and so different skills like that that the students have for over 8 weeks in the summer when they're here on campus. We also have other pipeline programs for the Atlanta community specifically. So one of them being our Emory Pipeline Collaborative, which is with high school students in the Atlanta community that come from Title I schools or like low income, under-resourced neighborhoods. And so again, that's a 3-year program with those high school students that are interested in the health professions, and they come to campus. And then we have the learners here from the School of Medicine. So students that are in the medical school, in the different allied health profession programs like the PA, PT, they actually build the curriculum, and then it's like a top-down mentoring system where then Emory undergrads also participate in this mentoring circle, and they teach science lessons to the high school students. And so that's another one. We also have a different Summer Science Academy, which is also for high school students. So all of these different pipelines, like the one that I participated in with the Leadership Alliance, are very, I saw the benefits in my own experience of how it accelerated my career and just like my knowledge. I feel like at the time I didn't know all of the different resources available if it weren't for these pipeline programs. And so those are just like a few of the things that our office does.
And Dr. Fleites, how has your experience working in the Ideal Research Office at UPenn prepared you to work with other minority students who may have reservations about their ability to exceed at an elite institution like UPenn? So either your experience there, or like you mentioned, the Leadership Alliance, or any of the other programs you participated in, how has that impacted your ability to work with underserved students and minority students?
Yeah. So it was very interesting for me in particular. Miami, if anyone is from there or has been there, it's very unique, very diverse. And so I never felt like a minority when I was in Miami. And so going to Penn, a predominantly white institution, definitely was very different for me. And so again, having that community was really helpful. And so a lot of this from my research program ended up matriculating into PhD programs as well, the same year that I did. And so those were became my roommates, my best friend in lab. And so that helped kind of that transition as well. But those programs just pair also, they give you mentors, right? Like peer mentors that look like you, that have had similar experiences as you, that can guide you as well. So I didn't know about post-bac programs when I was applying, and a year into my PhD program, right, seeing different students come by and learning about post-bac programs, and then I knew and I was able to advise students that maybe that would be an option for them, or applying straight to PhD programs. So it's just a matter. For me, it became more about the mentorship, that peer mentorship, that I think allowed me to continue the work that I was doing and just hear about different students' perspectives too, and just be humble about people's experiences, and also just for me to also better my mentoring abilities, because I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about your transition, because you have an associate's degree, right? And then you went on in psychology, and then you went on to get your bachelor's in neuroscience. So can you talk about that transition for you? What made you transition from the associates to then going on to your bachelor's? You talk about that transition and its impact on your career.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I decided to do an associate's was financial reasons, honestly. At the time, the honors college, when I applied, they actually gave a stipend for those going, and I was able to then stay and live at home during that time. And so it ended up making, at the time for me, the most sense, right, to save money and be able to not have to pay for my associates. And then through my associates, I was interested in psychology because I had taken AP Psych in high school and thought that, again, I wanted to be a psychiatrist. But through the honors college, I learned about the Bridge to the Baccalaureate program, that basically is a partner between Miami-Dade College and the University of Miami. And so I started doing research through that program. And then that led me to apply to the University of Miami for my bachelor's. And because it was through that program with the idea that I was going to continue doing research at the University of Miami, then I got a full ride through that program. And so again, financial reasons, didn't have to pay for my bachelor's, is why I decided to transfer to the University of Miami.
And I'm sure that creates obviously another a unique perspective for you as you approach your work and the types of students that you work with, because you have that personal experience as well. We have a student that asked, what inspired you to pursue neuroscience, and how did your experience in graduate school then shape your passion for inclusion, diversity, and equity work?
Yeah, so I got really interested in neuroscience. When I was when I did the summer research program, it was in a translational preclinical program, and so sorry, hold on. I'm getting over a cold, so and so I became I loved the research project that I did at Penn during that time, and I was learning about neuroscience as a field in general, and not many universities at the time also had that major. And because I was interested in the brain from like my AP Psych classes and all of that, I wanted to take neuroscience as a major. And then with the research project that I did at the University of Pennsylvania, that summer before enrolling, I was looking at the effects of a antidepressant, buprenorphine, on depressive-like behavior. And so seeing the animals change, basically they had anxiety-like behavior. We injected the drug, and then it was ameliorated. And so seeing that, where I inject the drug and see an effect, that kind of piqued my interest into that realm of addiction and anxiety related research.
Okay. So yeah, I'm sure that the Leadership Alliance program, also the summer research program, as you mentioned, shaped your decision to then go to UPenn for graduate school. And that's true for a lot of our doctoral scholars that have participated, including myself, where, I did my research at NYU as a Leadership Alliance student, and that's actually where I went on to pursue my PhD as well. So can you just talk a little bit about the experience, the summer research experience through the Leadership Alliance, and what, valuable skills you learned, or, the connections that you made as part of that program that helped you in your career path?
Yeah, so I had a great mentor. So I worked with a postdoc, or under a postdoc, in that summer research program, and they were a great, they just provided so much support during that summer. It made it a great experience. I developed a research project with their help, and they, after teaching me the different techniques, trusted me to be able to do it. And so I feel like that was also part of that being supported, right? And self-efficacy, giving me the confidence that I could do this. And then, so the mentors in the lab and the PI were great during that time in terms of supporting me. And then also just the peers that I met during that summer research program. Those are still, like I mentioned, one of them became my roommate in grad school and has been with me for 7 years. Another one became my lab mate, and once I transitioned to my PhD program, and they just became lifelong friends. And so that was also, seeing peers that ended up doing great things after that time. also was amazing. And I love the city of Philadelphia. So I think that that also goes back to doing a research program in the city. You get to know the city for a full summer. And then that also led me to apply to, because I knew I liked the city. And then also just the institution as well. I was able to meet faculty and different students that were in the neuroscience graduate program. And I saw how excited they were, how genuinely happy they were to be at the institution. The DEI office that ran the program also, the director, like I mentioned, was very supportive. And I just learned so much, kind of those hidden things that I didn't know about applying to PhD programs and what that entailed. And so just, I felt very supported that summer and learned so much. And also just for myself, it was the first time away from home too. And so I learned a lot about myself as well.
Awesome. And we have some students that are asking specifically about the health prep program that you oversee as one of the pipeline programs. And they want to know whether or not the health prep program considers courses that students take in their undergraduate studies before accepting them. For example, this person is studying computer science. Will it hinder or reduce his or her chances of getting accepted by health prep?
That's a great question. So health prep is a program designed for, or it's because it's federally funded. It's for low income and first generation students that apply to it. And so it is an 8-week summer in-person summer program here in at Emory School of Medicine. And so your past coursework doesn't limit whether you would get accepted into the program. It just depends on the track that you choose. So we give the option of an MCAT track or a GRE track, and that's because those are the Kaplan prep courses that we provide for students. And so we have to kind of make that division. And so if a student were interested in the MCAT track, for example, then because of that prep course, they would have had to have taken at least one semester of organic chemistry. And so that would be the only time that we would look at coursework, just to make sure we don't want them to struggle during the summer here while they're going through that prep course. But if they were to choose, for example, the GRE track, then we don't look at those courseworks. We want to make sure that if they are taking science courses, right, if they're interested in the allied health professions, so like physical therapy, physician assistant, anesthesiology assistant program, but even public health. And so there are some science courses required, but not necessary to get into the program. So it's more so what track is chosen that really dictates the coursework that might be looked at.
Okay. And so following up on that, a student wants to know, since the GRE are optional in most cases now, through various programs, do you advise taking the test or leaving it out?
I think it depends what program you're applying to. So if your top programs require the GRE, for example, then you're going to have to take it still. But if all of the programs that you're applying to it's optional, then I don't see a reason to take it.
Okay, so depending upon the program and the requirements.
Yeah, so I would say make your list of, programs that you're interested in, the institution, what are the requirements. If all of the ones that they are interested in don't require it, then no need to take it. But if there are some that do, then that's something to then start thinking about. It may be that, by the time that they do take it, that program may make it optional or it might still be required. So it's better to be prepared and make that list now.
Great. Another student wants to know how they can get involved in DEI work as an undergraduate to help improve their institution, their home institution.
That's a great question. And I want to say that it's not their job to do that work. Hopefully there are offices in place to move that forward, but I understand, having that passion to do DNI work. And so I would say it's always get involved with different communities that and different organizations. So if there's like a SACNAS chapter, or one for like first generation students, or for Black African American students, find your community. Usually those organizations and centers partner also with different DI offices, and so you can do work like that. Another way, and I see it from here at Emory School of Medicine, is students form organizations to tackle certain issues that they see they want changed. And so, for example, there are students that are interested in weaving DE&I in their course lectures. And so there are student groups that have been that were formed at the medical school level to work on that specifically. And so this was like many years ago, they did it, they proposed how D&I would be weaved through their medical school lectures, and then leadership saw that that is something that the students wanted, and it was needed, honestly. And then they were able to get a faculty member and gave them protected time. And now there is a thread director for that, that is what they're doing, looking at all of the curriculum, making sure that DE&I is threaded through the medical school curriculum. There's another group doing that also for the physical therapy group here. And so those are just, tangible things that you can do now, if that's something that you're passionate about, and it could be anything of that nature. But the other thing is just to also give back to different communities, and that could be through, just volunteering as a panelist or serving as a mentor for different pipeline programs. I think that that also helps kind of build that trajectory for other students as well.
Okay. And since you recently graduated and you're somewhat close to this experience, a student wants to know, how challenging was it to balance taking graduate school courses and lab rotations while in graduate school?
Yes, it was difficult. It was very difficult. So for me, the first year is when, at least for Penn, we have our rotations, and we have our rotations and coursework, main coursework during the first year. And for me, it was, I think, less about the time management aspect as more as learning that the way that I studied in undergrad, kind of like that rote memorization form, was not how you took exams and studied for grad school. And so I think that that was a learning curve. So understanding that, so that led me to have to change my study habits. I had to, thankfully, they provided tutors. I went to tutoring because I realized that in the first exam, they were assuming that I knew what a Western blot was, when my research background before, I had never done a Western blot, so I didn't know what that was. And so I think that, I realized I needed individual help, right, to kind of understand what was even being asked. And then the other thing was, so I was doing that while also doing my rotations. And I think the other piece of advice that I got when I was doing my rotations was that you don't need to get data at the end of it. Yes, data is always nice, right? But when you're doing rotations, really, it's kind of like speed dating to see if you like the lab environment. And so, you always want to work hard, right? Like learn the techniques, but at the end of the day, you're there to make sure that you and the mentor, right, it's a good match, and with the lab environment as well. So I think that taking off that pressure of like, you have to produce data by the end of it is something that was helpful for me, at least, to try to manage my time between studying, right, and then being in lab engaged in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. And one of our students wants to know, what was the most fulfilling aspect of your time in your PhD program at UPenn?
The most meaningful would again, go back to all of the students that I mentored in my research lab. I love teaching them and seeing them also kind of their confidence increase during the time that we work together. You know, mentoring is a two-way street. So the same way that I'm mentoring them, they're mentoring up, right? And I'm learning from them as well. And so I love that aspect of it. And then the other thing was I found my forever friends and family also during my PhD program. I had a great community there. And they, you know, supported me through, you know, in grad school, there are going to be ups and downs. And so kind of when there's, you know, being there for both of them. And so.
Nice. And we like to ask this question of all of our speakers and guests. So if you could go back in time and give your undergraduate self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I think it would be that you don't have to have it all figured out. You know, everyone's career trajectory is going to look different. It's a winding road. And kind of just, yeah, just, you know, live in the moment, live in the present moment and enjoy life to the fullest, because you don't know what's coming tomorrow. So no need to stress about the unknowns yet. I feel like when we're undergrads, and even sometimes now, we stress about things, but just remembering to live in the moment, and that, you know, doors will open and you'll figure out your way.
Great advice. And we're coming to the end of our time together. So I always like to ask our speakers, what are your parting words or, you know, guidance that you can give to the students out there on the panel or in our audience today, as far as how to move forward, whether it's pursuit of a graduate program or to just move to that next step? What advice would you give them?
It would be to talk to others that are doing or are in careers that you're interested in, because those informational meetings would be very helpful. Either to see if you are interested in a certain career, or to say, no, you're not interested. And so sometimes it's easier to start with the no, you're not interested, and before you find what you are interested in. And so I would recommend for everyone to just, you know, have genuine conversations with others and see what it is that they're doing. What does their day-to-day look like? What are they passionate about? Because that would really, and if they don't know, right, or if they don't know something, they might put you in contact with someone that does.
And what would you say about, you know, the value of programs like the Leadership Alliance or otherwise? How do students find those opportunities? What should they do to get involved in either summer research or research at their home institutions, if that's an option?
Yeah, so some institutions have undergraduate research centers or offices that they could reach out to that might have a list of faculty, sometimes even just emailing faculty directly, finding them on LinkedIn sometimes can work. And if they don't answer, reach back out maybe in like a week or two, since some faculty are very busy. But I would always also contact the different like pre-health advisors as well, or whatever current advisors that they have. They would know about different opportunities in their home institution, but might know of other ones elsewhere. I think that academic Twitter is a really powerful tool to use nowadays. I find a lot of research opportunities on there that then I send to my mentees that are interested in research. And so also LinkedIn is a great, so as you start connecting with individuals and you start meeting with them, add them on LinkedIn. They, especially if they are in the different like pipeline programs. They'll like also repost. And so those are all different ways to find different opportunities. But reaching out to people in, the offices like this, Office of Multicultural Affairs, racial and civic engagement, all these different offices, the graduate programs will have lists of faculty members that they can send their, student CVs to. I saw that a lot actually when I was at Penn. We would get from one of the listservs just students' CVs that were interested in doing research, and then that would get sent out to all the faculty members. And so that's also another way to do it, reaching out to program directors and program coordinators in the grad groups that you're interested in, and just having them send out a mass email with your CV.
Absolutely. And the Leadership Alliance has a LinkedIn account. We're also on all the various social media channels. So if you're not already following us, please do, because we will repost opportunities for on behalf of the other institutions that belong to the Leadership Alliance. So make sure you're following us on there. I just wanted to end with this last question. Given your background, a student wants to know, as a liaison for the Latino Student Medical Association, do you have any tips for Latino students pursuing graduate studies?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. Talk to the students at the institutions that you're interested in, see what their experiences have been like, and then see what type of community outreach they do. So I know that, for example, in Atlanta, some people might not know, but there is a really big Hispanic community here. And so a lot of our students in the Latino Medical Student Association work in student clinics in different communities, and they will serve as interpreters and translators in those clinics. And so there's different, like here, there's the Farm Worker Project. So a lot of our students that speak Spanish will go out into rural Georgia, where the farm workers are. And so this is a program led by the PA program, but a lot of students that speak Spanish also go. So I think it's knowing the different institutions that you are interested in, seeing what the demographics are for that institution, but also for the community, because I was surprised of how big a Hispanic community there was here in Atlanta. So I think that could be true for other places as well. So just get to know, the patients and the community that the institution serves as well.
Thank you, Dr. Fleites. And I know we have a number of questions we didn't get to, so I don't know if you wanted to share your contact information with the students. We can have Dr. Indorf post it into the Google Classroom. To all of the students out there, thank you for joining us this evening. We will continue our workshop series on Wednesday with how to write a personal statement in CV. So please join us for that one. And like I said, if you have any other questions for Dr. Fleites, we can share your questions in the Google Classroom with her. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Fleites, for volunteering your time. We really appreciate it. And we will see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, if anyone's interested in, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to talk to students.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the invitation again.
Bye.